Knights of the Apocalypse is back with another brand new chapter. Now, when we initially got news of a sudden hiatus for Knights of the Apocalypse due to Nakaba Suzuki's health, we all assumed it would probably take a while. Heck, I was in the process of planning out videos for a bi-weekly release to plan stuff out in case we were going to be in for a long haul. But lo and behold, 2 weeks later, we ended up getting a new chapter, and this was a really good one and really started to feed us more into who Arthur is as a character. We get to see more of Gawain's home life. We get to see more of Kay, Gawain's father, and Arthur's stepbrother. A lot was given to us in this chapter, some really funny moments, as well as setting up the next arc, and really solidifying that I feel like Four Knights is in a very good spot right now, and it can only go up from here. Before we jump into things, don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell for updates on future videos. Really helps, and it shows you guys enjoy the content I make here on the channel and shows you want to see more. There's also no news of another break or hiatus at the time being, so for right now, seems like we're back to regularly scheduled chapters for Four Knights of the Apocalypse, and I really hope Nakaba Suzuki is taking his health into account for future chapter releases. And if you want to support the channel more directly, go and become a patron on my Patreon. For just $2 a month, you get access to my patron-only Discord server, early access to videos up to a week early that aren't chapter review videos, and other details where you can recommend me stuff to review, and I'm currently setting up stuff for potential live readings or watch parties on a bi-weekly basis once I get things figured out for that. You also get your name at the end of videos starting in September, and you can potentially get a shout out at the end of the video. I'm planning to make the Patreon and the Discord server as fun and as engaging as possible to make it worth your while. And also, if you want, go and use my referral link down below for Advanced GG and use my code GreekWeeb10 to get up to 15% off at checkout for some really nice supplements, shakers, and thermoses from Advanced GG. Really great flavors for focus, energy, and just straight up hydration. You will really enjoy it. Now with that out of the way, on with the video. So chapter 159 of Four Knights of the Apocalypse, titled Within His Arms. And we start things off directly from last chapter, where Gawain tells them about the Gladiator Festival that Beltrup is hosting very soon in Camelot in that prison. And Gawain says yes, an event where those who want to escape prison wager their freedom and fight each other. The festival winner is granted both their freedom and a single wish from Beltrup himself. Just the two of them before a huge crowd of onlookers. And so Percival and Nazians realize that it's a good chance to strike Beltrup. Don even says that man's gotta be on his guard. But Gawain proudly proclaims that no, he wouldn't. You don't get it. He's supremely arrogant. In all honesty, makes sense considering what happened with the previous introduction with Beltrup, where he literally cut down Gother and just didn't treat anybody in that general area, even one of the 7 deadly sins, with any real regard or caution whatsoever. Could also be because he gave up his humanity for power in the power of chaos, but that's also a strong possibility. I also just like that Donnie cracked a quick joke saying that Beltrup is just like Gawain with how arrogant they are. And I just love how Gawain literally just partially turned her left arm into her muscular form and just bonked Donnie on the head. Gawain can now seemingly just enlarge or make any part of her body at will just for partial power boosts. That's actually a pretty fun detail. And for all we know, that can end up saving her life in the future. But An says, how are they going to reach this place? And Gawain says, oh, you doubt me too, An? Well, we'd take this boat, of course, as we get a wide shot of the boat that they're currently on. And apparently, it can go anywhere. It was stated in the previous chapter, and I did not think that they would use this to go to that Colosseum, to that prison, for this tournament. But Gawain then smiles and says, but why don't we fortify ourselves with a good meal first? You can't have fun in a fight on an empty stomach. And so she calls for her grandparents to come in, as Percival just loudly proclaims, finally time for some real food. Is that a quick jab at the Fairy Realm? Did you not like King Indiane's food in the Fairy Realm, Percival? Huh? Okay, moving on. An then asks if Gawain's father will be joining them, but Gawain just tries to brushing it off, saying, we all eat when we want to, that's just the custom right now. Not that I know why, but it always feels kind of awkward when father and I are alone. But she then breaks up the tension, says, "Let's talk about you, shall we? How are you going to join a gladiator festival when you have no weapon?" And I cannot believe this did not appear right now. I did not think of this, because I'm so used to Percival after his return to just use his magical aura to create weapons for him, to create a blade and stuff. It's so easy. But it makes sense that if there's going to be a tournament, a gladiator tournament, that Percival would actually need a literal weapon, and he doesn't have his sword anymore. So, they're going to have to grab a weapon for Percival to use in this tournament, because everybody else has a weapon in Team Percival, and I believe Gawain, if she also ends up entering this tournament, will most likely use her Divine Sword Rita. So that's a pretty interesting question and topic that Gawain brought up. I'm really happy this was brought up, because I feel like somebody would have mentioned this, and I'm glad this was brought up, because now they can prepare. Now, I also like, after being told this, Percival is just like, "Oh, yeah, I kind of popped out in the spur of the moment, so I didn't really think too much about it." And I love this little panel of just Nazians being like, "It's not a big issue," and On just telling Nazians not to spoil Percival. Kind of funny. Nazians being the doter of the group, and On just trying to make sure he isn't, like, spoiled to hell, and just gets too full of himself or does the stupid decisions. I kind of like that interaction. But Gawain states that you're pretty lucky that you came to me first, though. I'll be sure to hook you up with a weapon. As there's a knock on the door, as Gawain calls out for a grandmother, stating that they're starving. And the next panel is a doll, or a golem to be more specific, just walking out to Gawain and everybody in the group, and I have the same reaction as Percival and the gang, as we just shouted out in utter fear and confusion. As Gawain is just being like, "Can you all just quiet down? You're way too noisy." As the puppet then begins to creak, eyes bowling around, waving up their arms, and everyone's wondering what the heck is going on with this golem, as then a bunch of amazing food is plopped on the table. And the golem states, "Your menu for today is flying stingray and cream sauce, kraken salad, dusk bison steak, chicken matango pie, and boar berry cream pudding." As Gawain jovially says, "Thanks, Grandma," as Donnie's like, "Wait, what the heck?" Oh man, this is kind of hilarious. As someone else also comes in off the corner, as Gawain calls this her grandfather. As this is a T-Rex skeleton in a suit, bringing in tea and silverware, saying, "Here are the condiments as well as silverware." Okay. And the conversation just keeps going on with, "But hello to you, my guests. I serve the lady of the house, as you see. Thank you for being so kind to the cutest young lady in the world. I do hope that you will continue to be good friends to Lady Gawain," as Gawain is actually starting to get embarrassed and starts shooing them away as they tell him to enjoy their food. And Gawain waves them away and says, "Okay, eat up. Doesn't it all look lovely?" as if nothing happened. And Percival is just like, curious set of grandparents right there. As long as like, curious, what the hell, man? Those are freaking terrifying. And yeah, so tangent time. So either this could be incredibly sad and depressing, or honestly, this is probably a bit sad and depressing, because this gives us a more clearer picture that Gawain has been very lonely in her life. Now, the chances are that maybe these golems were made by maybe Merlin or Arthur to kind of keep Gawain company, or to help serve Kay in their house, or whatever the heck. That's one thing. That's possible, and Gawain got an attachment to them when she was younger, started calling them Grandma and Grandpa, seemingly because she doesn't have grandparents in her life, and her only actual family is her father and kind of Arthur. Or, with, as Gawain stated, it's awkward when her and her father are together, so she might have created these golems to kind of take on the role of her grandparents, to kind of have some positive reinforcement in her life, have people to talk to and kind of dote on her, which honestly feeds into her whole superiority complex and arrogance as well. This is kind of sad and a bit depressing in either of these scenarios, because either way, Gawain has no friends or family other than her father to talk to and just open up to. And this is the only real way she can express genuine joy and emotion. And now she has actual friends that she can express this to. They're also incredibly creepy, let's be honest. The grandma doll golem is very creepy. The T-Rex grandpa, kind of goofy and silly, I don't mind that. But yeah, this is a lot to take in, and makes me think of how kind of sad Gawain's personal life has been before meeting everybody in the story. So, kind of a good thing she ran away from Camelot, because otherwise, I shudder to think how her mental state would have gone if she was just alone with these things for more time without interacting fully and honestly with other people. But we get a brief few panels of everybody beginning to chow down on some of the delicious meals that Gawain's grandparents created for them, and everyone's just waiting around and wondering what happened to Percival, as he might have joined to the bathroom but got lost. And then Gawain's like, I'll go look for them, as she begins to fly off looking for Percival, wondering how could anybody get lost here. As he then cuts to the top of the mast of this ship house thing, as we see Kay cutting and trimming some branches, as Percival appears from right behind him. As Kay states, "Oh, you again. Did you come to stop me from reporting to the authorities?" As Percival's like, "Nah, I'm not worried about that." Kay asks Percival why he's here, and Percival asks a actually pretty genuine question that honestly I think would have been asked. You're King Arthur's brother, right? As Kay says, well, not by blood. Percival then asks him, I was hoping you could tell me what Arthur is like as a person. We just know far too little about him. As Kay pauses for a second and says, I'm afraid I never had much love for him. As we got to the past, with a nice transition. As he goes on to say, when I was young, my father brought him in as a child. Your brother from now on, he said. As we see a young Arthur getting led in to seemingly in front of Kay in the royal palace. That's how he met Arthur. We then get some more instances of their lives going by. As he states, Arthur got used to life on the court fairly quickly, even won over his father's love as well as trusted nobles and servants. As he goes on to say that not even he had earned that respect and love. Until one day an oracle, probably Merlin, came to Camelot with a sword embedded in a stone. It was the holy sword Excalibur. They said anyone who pulled it out would succeed the previous king of Camelot. Famed knights, strong men, and power-hungry fiends all tried their luck with it. As did Kay as well, but no one was successful. Until one day, when Kay had given up, we can get a nice transition of someone grabbing the sword, and it begins to be pulled out, as the next page is Arthur with Merlin in the background, see, Merlin, pulling out Excalibur. As Kay states, that mere boy of 14 pulled the blade with barely an effort. Obviously alluding to the fact that Arthur would have the power of chaos and was also the chosen knight of the sword Excalibur. And Kay was starting to break down when he was younger. He states, nobody could ever understand the unease and despair I felt that day. At this rate, not only would everything I knew be taken from me, I'd be forced to wait upon Arthur hand and foot my entire life. As a young Kay begins to get increasingly frustrated. He states, so I tricked him. I snatched the sword away from him and claimed to my father that it was I who pulled it. But the lie didn't last long. As I cut to the previous king of Camelot beating Kay to the ground, as Kay states, no, I shamed myself in front of him, and then I was thrown in the dungeon. When Arthur came to visit my cell, I ranted and raved at him. You're a pox upon this land. You should never have been born. As we get a panel of just Kay just utterly unloading on a young Arthur. But then Kay is stunned, as the next panel shows a young Arthur beginning to cry. As Kay realizes that it was actually a sorcerer, again, probably Merlin, most likely Merlin, 100% Merlin, that saw Arthur draw the blade, who exposed my lie. No, he neither told my father nor anyone else about my folly. In fact, he begged my father to release me from imprisonment. He said I wasn't at fault. And when my father stopped feeding me as punishment, Arthur ferried his dinners over to me untouched, as we transition back to the present. As Kay states, that is the kind of person Arthur is. There's never been a king so kind and so noble. As Percival then begins to ask a honestly pretty mature question and obvious question, so why then? Why aren't you going to report to him? As Kay states, because what you see now isn't at all the Arthur I know. I would make any effort possible to get my old brother back, even if it means lending a hand to those hostile to him. So this is really, really good, because Kay, and fully admits in the past, he despised Arthur. Heck, there were even bonus material in the Forms of the Apocalypse volumes, bonus chapters, showcasing some of Arthur's early life and how Kay mistreated and didn't like Arthur in their younger years. But in this chapter, we see not only the full mental breakdown of Kay and how he wanted to just take down Arthur and how he was afraid of Arthur succeeding him, but when he did something pretty unforgivable, Arthur never sold him out on his lie about pulling Excalibur. In fact, it was, again, most likely Merlin, and even then, Arthur continued to plead for his brother, and ended up stating that it wasn't Kay's fault, showcasing the Arthur that we got to know in Seven Deadly Sins, his origins as the kind and compassionate person that he was in the past, that fully won over Kay, as Kay then, in this instance, fully saw Arthur as his brother, respected him, and perhaps even began to love him as his own brother like he probably would have over the years if he had let go of that resentment and hatred for him. But now, this is the reason why Kay doesn't talk to Arthur, or more or less kind of cut ties with him. The Arthur right now is completely different from the Arthur he saw and got to know over the years. He changed, and he is fully wanting Percival and the Four Knights to fight Arthur because he wants his old brother back. He wants the brother that he grew to love and respect with all of his heart. And this is beautiful. I love it. This really does show in the past Arthur's life and who he was, as well as his relationship with Kay and how Kay grew to fully love and respect Arthur. That's great, and showcases why now, obviously, Kay wouldn't come to respect Arthur or want anything to do with him because he's completely different than the person that he was and began to love and respect in the past. That's great. That's great character growth, even though it's very small in regard, but this showcases a lot into the life of Arthur in the past, and I'm very happy that we got this. Moving on, Kay states, Percival, please take Gawain with you, as Gawain manages to, just in time to hear all this, is hovering over the apple patch. As Kay says, I'm a small, servile, clumsy parent. I'm not sure I can say I gave her enough of my love. But still, I am sure she can be of some use to you. But Percival says, well, maybe it looked ugly, but that apple you grew sure tasted good. And I'm sure that's kind of Percival's way of saying, you might not think you did well, but Gawain turned out to be a very good person at the end of the day anyway. And I know Kay is taking responsibility. Chances are, yeah, he probably didn't give Gawain enough love and compassion as he raised her. Heck, the grandparent golems paint a very bleak story for Gawain. But Percival goes on to say, and Gawain's an incredibly reliable person. I can trust her all the way. As Gawain hears this and begins to blush, and it's just kind of nice. Gawain fully hears Percival saying that he trusts her no matter what, and then Kay says, you truly are a strong young man. As Gawain looks away, while hovering in the air says, well, you said it, as that ends the chapter. Honestly, really great chapter that we got after a nice break. A full 20 pages too, which I'm happy with. But we got a sliver of Arthur backstory and his life as a young boy and his whole relationship with his brother. That whole plotline development. A bit of Gawain's home life with the grandparents. Setting up a bit more for the tournament. And Kay and Percival coming to understanding. And Gawain 100% in that moment that I fully believe places all of her trust back into Percival. As Percival fully trusts Gawain, and I guess that's also something that Gawain, at the end of the day, truly, really wanted to hear him say once more, to really affirm that they're friends for life, and that they can have each other's back no matter what. This is a great chapter. A really good one after a full-on 2-week hiatus. And I can't wait to see what happens next, because if we get chapters like this from now on, this only confirms that since the time skip, Four Knights has been nothing but good. I have had no real complaints, maybe some nitpicks, but overall, the story has been progressing at a rather smooth pace. It doesn't feel rushed. It doesn't feel like we're rushing towards the end. It feels properly paced. We're getting some new growth with the main cast, and we're beginning to slowly get back to Four Knights and build out the rest of the world, and more of Arthur as a character, even not by him directly. And needless to say, I think Four Knights has a very strong and good future ahead of it, and I cannot wait to keep covering this series on a weekly basis for you guys as things continue. But what do you guys think? How do you feel about this chapter? How do you feel about the tiny bit of Arthur and by extension Kay backstory and the relationship of their past in this chapter? How do you feel about the interactions with Gawain and a bit more of a look into her home life? Let me know in the comment section down below. And if you haven't already, like and subscribe and hit the notification bell for updates on future videos. really helps, and it shows you guys enjoy the content I make here on the channel and shows you want to see more. I'm so happy and excited for the rest of 4 nights, and it feels so good to be back. 2 weeks, which just felt like way too long to not talk about this series on a weekly basis, let me tell you.